Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the probably biggest episode for a while of Class REDACTED, the show where we delve deep into the terrifying world of SCP, focus on the more unknown parts of this universe. I'm saying that this episode is probably one of the biggest we'll ever do because I had very stressful time researching all of this with real life coming into clash with this little podcast thing we're doing. It's been a lot. Also, my graduation's up in less than a week, so that's pretty scary. But regardless, we're back to talk about SCP shit. And today, we're doing one of my favorite topics of all time, and the first big topic that I got introduced to when I was introduced to SCP roughly 8 years ago. And that is, he has many names. The Crimson Lord, the Devourer of Worlds, SCP 2317. It's the Scarlet King. Talking about the Scarlet King, the big man, the destroyer of universes, the god of destruction, whatever you want to call him. The king is here, and we're gonna talk about him. Yeah, but of course, I'm not alone because I can't do this alone. I have three wonderful guests, like always. Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Okay. Good, Scarlet King time. I've teased this episode as gigantic and confusing. That's because it kinda is. This will be our longest recording session, and also the one I've studied the most for, because with the first episode, which is our longest currently, I could do lots of like things off the top of my head. I have lots of things memorized for like the general basic term of SCP lore, but the Scarlet King is fucking huge, and even I can't remember everything this fucker has going on. So I did a lot of research. I have 7 pages. Ironic, I know, for those of you who know the Scarlet King. Funny 7 number. Actually, on the topic of it, if any one of you, regardless, during this entire episode runtime, count how many times I say 7. It's gonna be fun. But that's besides the point. Good, Scarlet King. V, have you heard of the Scarlet King before? Of his name?
I've heard of the name, and that's about it. Because
Okay,
since we started the podcast, you guys have been talking up the Scarlet King this, Scarlet King that, and I was like, I'm not touching that until we do the podcast episode.
Very, very good. Okay, very, very understandable.
You made
honestly.
a good decision.
Yeah, very good decision. That is, at least getting a little bit into the Scarlet King is like solid 3-4 hours of reading. It's he a big boy. He a big important lore boy.
The only thing bigger and redder than Clifford.
Exactly, yes. I will be, but because I love him so much, I have lots of nostalgia for the Scarlet King. Because, like I said before, he was the first big overarching topic that I got into when I got introduced to SCP. I will be doing him, hopefully, a lot of justice, because I will be going into the nitty-gritty details of the king and how he works. Before we get into who he is, we have to get a little bit of trivia of important facts about the Scarlet King out the window first. Some might have heard of you that the Scarlet King is very open to interpretation. That's because he is. We will be explaining why he is that way in just a second. But take everything I say in this episode with like 50 grains of salt. The Scarlet King has probably the most amount of freedom of interpretation on the entire wiki. What he is entirely dependent on what you want him to be, and that's and even inside SCP, which as its own is it's open to interpretation. He has a billion different headcanons, a billion different interpretations of what he could possibly be. So, like I said, you could believe me or not believe me. I have made a somewhat coherent idea of what he is in my personal head, but like I said, that's just my interpretation. Yours can be totally different. So if you want to know more and want to know everything about him, I suggest reading the tales that we cover in full for yourself, because I will be, even though this episode is quite long, I will be skipping lots and lots of details and lots of tales that painted a radically different picture of what he is. But the intro is going on for way too long. Let's get into Scarlet King. And for a place to start, we will not be looking at SCP first, but rather 2 specific tales that are very important to understanding what this guy is all about. And the first one will be a file from the GOC, actually. Will not be starting in the SCP Foundation. The file is called KTE-2013 Kapala Mendes, or the King's Spears. This document was part of the GOC discussion hub, and is one of their many documentations for raids that they do on anomalous groups or cults. And this one, in particular, it was their first encounter with a cult known as the Children of the Scarlet King, who you will be hearing a lot about soon. So, what the fuck is this document about? The document covers an artifact that was discovered at a local cult site belonging to the Children of the Scarlet King. The artifacts were known in the weird scripture that they have laying around as the King's Spears, which are 7 spears, very similar to like old medieval weaponry, but very rusty and like fucked up. And they were discovered there, guarded by cult members. These spears, however, had, of course, like everything, anomalous properties, which are very in-depth, and I will be going through every one of them, so this might take a while. But when these spears come into close proximity with each other, so if they're like very close together, they will be able to create portals. Similar to, for example, a nether portal in Minecraft, where you arrange things and then there's like a big portal between them. That's what these spears act like. Depending on the number of spears that are together, the portal will change in size and in their general effect, what they can do. If there is 6 or more spears, the portal will be very big and can fit around humanoid-sized entities through them. If it's 4 or less, it will be a medium-sized portal, whereas like, for example, like a child or a big animal can get through. And if there's 2 or less, it will create these micro portals, very small portals, where things like insects or vermin like mice or whatever can come through, depending on how many spears are currently aligned. When these spears are aligned and the portals are being created, the GOC has found that the entities that come out of these portals are, simply said, fucking demons. Because, yeah, I guess these were known as the King's Demons, or if you want the scientific term, KTE 2023 Ragweed Mendes, as they're called in the document. I will not call them that, fuck no.
The weed demons, no.
The weed demon, yeah, fuck yeah.
Nether spear.
The weed.
That sounds better than the King Spears.
Yep, it sounds bad. Good. So demons coming through portal. Pretty bad. The appearance and abilities of these demons vary drastically. No 2 entities look alike. No 2 demons are do the same thing. But what they are all they're very angry and very hostile to everything, to every human life form, basically. Like demons are normally. If you've ever played Doom, you know what I'm talking about. So the problem is that in all their testing that the GOC did, only 6 spears could be aligned at once. It is currently theorized that when all 7 spears come together, you're basically fucked. Like, you mostly are with the Scarlet King. Because when 7 spears are formed, the portal will be absolutely gigantic, rumored to be the size of a whole country. And the Scarlet King himself will be able to enter our dimension, causing numerous XK class end of the world scenarios.
And he'll finally be able to pay child support.
God damn.
We went to another dimension to not pay child support.
That will be a lot funnier when we talk about his children. But okay. Where was I? Right. Right. The Death of World. Good. There I was. That's like the default option when you talk about the Scarlet King. Good. So big portal gets created. Red King comes through. sometimes also it is also theorized that accompanying the Scarlet King, there also might be another entity known as the Seventh Bride that is next to him and will also appear through that portal. What that means is unknown to the GOC. What that will probably mean, we will be talking about soon. So, after these spears were successfully found and recovered by the GOC, multiple tests, they were given to the Foundation, and multiple tests were conducted trying to find out what the spears do. I will be listing every spear of them because they're all pretty fucking awesome in like what their abilities are. And I will be starting right now. So, the first spear, known as KTE 2013 Alpha, has the ability to basically mind control your enemies. When you pierce someone with the spear and you stab someone, the victim will turn into like a comatose state, where they will be like just a brain dead husk standing there doing nothing. After that has been done, the wielder can now command the victim freely, and they will do whatever the wielder says they should do. This is true to every spear. When a human person gets hold of the spear, they will get this weird, like, mind possession thing. Like, for example, have you ever seen, like, The Exorcist? Like, that kind of mind possession I'm talking about. Like, the weird, deep demonic shit where they spew religious crap the entire time. That's what's happening. And and the wielder will then refer to themselves as Raman Vaduk, also known as the Glorious. The weird names are a precipice in the Scarlet King, so lots of weird names I will be spewing right now. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing all of them correctly, but let's hope for the best. So, Alpha Spear possessing people. The Bravo Spear, the second one, has the ability to turn any water it touches into solid human blood, not solid, but into human blood. Very, not very dangerous, that much. However, the spear constantly has a swarm of bugs and insects that orbit around the spear, like demon insects, like big fucking flies and shit that orbit around the spear constantly. This swarm of insects guides, quote unquote, the spear to the other spears because they want to assemble the seven spears to get the big portal open. The wielder also has the ability then to control this swarm, to mind control the swarm, and the swarm will follow every attack the wielder makes. The wielder will also refer to themselves as Amana Kifen, I think is how you Kifenn, or the Noisome. The third spear, the Charlie Spear, has the ability, is a lot more brutal than the other two spears. When people get into close proximity of the spear, not even when the spear is like touching them, but just standing too close, the spear will basically slash you with like invisible attacks and will give you big hemorrhagic wounds all over your body. These wounds cannot be healed, or the Foundation just hasn't found a way to heal those wounds, and you will die a very painful death by bleeding out over several days. Pretty rough.
Okay, now.
That's one of the... Yep, as you do. So you get too close to museum artifact, you bleed out instantly. Very, very, very bad choice. The wielder also has an increased effect of that weird mind possession shit. And they begin to scream out weird, unidentifiable words and phrases and religious stuff. They just scream at the top of their lungs. What the other ones don't do that. The name that the wielder calls themselves has been redacted due to some phrases that the wielder screams being slightly cognito-hazardous.
Because of course they are.
Yeah, and turning people into basically followers of the wielder. So everything has been redacted regarding the name or the phrases that the wielder exhibits. The fourth spear, the Delta Spear, is basically a more dangerous version of the third spear, and seeing how brutal and inhumane the third spear is, that's not very...
That's not
I
good.
like it. Not.
How?
I will say it right now. The wounds are significantly bigger, deeper, and you will lose more blood. So basically, you will bleed out in not days but minutes.
So third.
Arguably better. Arguably not that bad.
Arguably.
Because it'll
Absolutely
hurt
better.
more, but it'll hurt more, but you'll die faster. So in that situation, I think you don't really have a choice.
Fuck that, I'll take that. Please kill me in minutes instead of days. If I'm gonna die, then kill me faster.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The wielder has the same vocalization as with the third spear. However, their speech is not cognitohazardous, and they will refer to themselves as Karal Ba. Further titles are unknown. The fifth spear, the Echo Sphere, is probably the coolest, in my opinion, the coolest out of them all, because the wielder will get access to low-level Type Green abilities. If you don't know what a Type Green is, it is the GOC's way of categorizing reality benders, and a Type Green is the highest level of reality bender. So you basically turn into a low-level reality bender when you wield that spear. Pretty cool. I mean, we talked about reality benders in the last episode. For example, Clef and also the Witch Girl, those are Type Greens, for example. So you will basically turn into a small version of that.
That's pretty cool.
It gets cooler. Some effects include levitation, being able to cause hallucinations in other sentient life forms, and pyrokinesis, basically firebending.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
It's pretty fucking awesome, honestly. It's pretty cool. It's
So,
pretty fucking
Spear
awesome.
5 is just you gain creative mode. Go cool.
Exactly,
cool.
yes. You fucking / game mode 1 that shit.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. However, pretty cool so far. Not very cool is the secondary effect. Because the spear slowly drains you of your quote-unquote life essence, it's referred to, from the wielder. Because during the time you wield the spear, you will slowly start to lose muscle mass, and when there's no muscle mass left, it will affect your internal organs, and then you will die of fatal organ failure. So, double-edged sword. Double-edged sword, yeah. Double-edged spear, yes.
Yeah.
Wait, did I say spear?
Yes.
That was
you
an
did.
accident.
It works pretty well.
I guess
It
it
works
works.
pretty fucking great. The wielder also has that same jargon shit, and they will refer to themselves as Tough Nair, or the Broken. The sixth spear, the Foxtrot Spear, is the one that is the least cool, because all the wielder can do is create extra-dimensional portals, giving you the ability to instantaneously travel to any part of the universe you wish. These portals are gigantic walls of fire with a black shadow substance around the edges of that portal. Every person that is not the wielder who tries to go through that portal gets burned to a crisp instantly. But the wielder can go through those portals and yeet to whatever part of the world of the universe they want to. The name is unknown from the wielder because they do not speak. The wielder will lose their ability to speak or just chooses not to speak. It's currently not known what of the two it really is.
I love how that is the least cool ability out of all of them, but it's still a fucking Ghost Rider teleport to everywhere.
Yep, but that's the least cool ability that you get with the sixth sphere. And the seventh sphere is unknown.
So
Because the GOC has not been able to recover the seventh spear during that raid. So currently only 6 of the 7 spears are known to the Foundation. However, together with the 7 spears, additional documents and weird religious books were recovered from that cult site. And in one of those books, the GOC found in one of those books was a story known as Dust and Blood. And this one is very important. It's a tale on the SCP Wiki. It is a very important tale to understanding the Scarlet King and his main cause or why he is that way. So it will be, of course, but paraphrasing it a little bit. So the tale goes like this. Dust and Blood is set in an age long before the creation of the multiverse, long before anything really existed that the Foundation or we have categorized. Of course, this, of course, the Wanderer's Library has that, meaning that this thing exists because, the Wanderer's Library and shit. So we still have some evidence of what it could possibly be, but the evidence is rather lacking. The only thing that we do know about this age is that it was called the Age of the Elder Gods. Because way back then when that took place, something called the Tree of Knowledge was planted by the original creator, who is not known, giving birth to the race of Elder Gods. Basically, envision, to those of you who know Warhammer, like the old ones from the Necrons, like those kinds of people, like big gods, god civilization that created everything. That's basically how it goes. One of those gods is, however, not one of those very fortunate and one of those fortunate gods that wants to create and to prosper and to make worlds. Some of them were relegated to the shadows, to the dark abyss, which is basically their version of hell. And one of them was a god known as Karok. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Khahrhhk. I'll get the name in the Discord because Jesus Christ, that's how you spell him. What the fuck is that name?
Too many H's.
I think it's Karok. I think that's how you pronounce. I'm gonna say it right now. Karok. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Regardless, this man, he was one of the gods relegated to the abyss. He was basically a peasant to the other bigger gods. And he endured millennia long time of pain and agony and just being trampled on constantly by the gods above him. This angered Karok to such an extent that after millennia of torture and pain, he set out to destroy the Tree of Knowledge, ending creation as is, basically. And so he waited for a very long time until he was powerful enough to cling himself out of the abyss and rip that tree out of the ground, killing every single elder god that was birthed from it, with the only elder god now being him, with Karok being the only remaining elder god, and him now, basically, gotta start again, sorry. So, Karok has now became the only elder god that is to live, and he himself is now adoring the title of king, because he is the only one left, because he killed everyone else. Every god that came after this age, so that was birthed from the elder gods, because they, like every other person had children, had offspring, was now under Karok's rule, because he was the only elder god, and he became basically king of the Age of Gods. This continued for a very long time, until he discovered a certain god that he subjugated, known as Sana, Sanna, the goddess of wisdom, who he basically forced her to marry him. Not very cool, man. Not very cool. And so he basically forced her to be with him, and he had he spent 7 days and 7 nights with Sana. After this time, she was basically completely broken by him. She was abused, tortured, just absolutely destroyed until there was nothing left of her, and she broke down and died. Karok used the blood of Sana to basically nurture him, gather her power of ever-present wisdom, and now became a being known as Shormaush Urdal, known as the Scarlet King. However, before Sana died, the Scarlet King had 7 daughters with her. You might, if you quick little jump back, remember the 7 spears, their abilities and their what their basic shtick is. You will see parallels to these daughters. The first daughter is called Ativik, I think. A apostrophe Tivik. Ativik. She is the incredible intelligent war master. She was the daughter to control the armies, to lead the Scarlet King's wars, and to conquer everything that she set her sights on. Her seal, because every daughter was fit with a seal by the Scarlet King, was called Vaduk, or also known as the Minion. The second daughter, Agor, is the embodiment of sadness. Her children, she was incredibly sad, incredibly traumatized, and basically was very. This led her to become very slow, lots of sloth and laziness. And she basically just rot away because she was so sad. However, she was the bearer of the armies. She birthed entire armies of soldiers, all under the king, and these armies were like a swarm. Get it? Parallels between spears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to conquer in the king's name, and to basically, she was basically the she produced the armies that Ativik used to conquer everything. Her seal is named Kifen, like the spear is called, also known as Longing. The third daughter is, Adistat? I think that's how you pronounce it. She had a relentless hatred against her other sisters, because she is basically the embodiment of ruin. She is a brutal barbarian. Her children slaughtered and destroyed everything. In the text it said that, quote, her armies slaughtered and destroyed until there was nothing left, showering the battlefield in blood and ash of her fallen foes. And her seal was known as Hezum, or Hezhum, I don't really know, Hezhum, or known as Desolation. So now also, this also says that we now know the third spear's name, because they all have names that the people call themselves that possess the spears. So the name is Hezhum. The fourth daughter, called, Azib, Hzieb, Azib, I think she's called. She was the most powerful of all the daughters. She took the form of a great beast, it's referred to in the texts. Her children were just as terrifying as she was. They destroyed absolutely everything, and they were also known as the Undying, because all the wounds that got inflicted onto her and her children healed almost instantly, and their skin was almost impenetrable. She bore the seal of Ba, also known as Wrath. The fifth daughter, Anut, had a very, very frail body, but a very powerful mind. Her children were very intelligent mages, winning wars not through bloody sword combat, to hand-to-hand combat, but through ranged assaults. Basically like high-level psychers in Warhammer. The problem is, she and her children became a little bit too powerful, so the Scarlet King stepped in and handicapped them, basically, by casting like a spell, by altering their seal, so that, because he feared that one day her and her armies would outrank him in terms of power. The seal that he gave them was Ner, N-E-R, called Lack of power, like the handicapping thing.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. The sixth daughter was called Atelif, I think. They never spoke a word. She and her daughters were completely silent, never spoke a single word. But they were basically like thieves. They won wars not through combat or through bloodshed, but through stealth and sabotage. And they also were known to basically have a backdoor into every single army that the Scarlet King wanted to deal with. Their seal was known as Ushek, or also called Hidden. But the seventh daughter, called Ahabat, she was different than all the others. She was a very small and weak woman. However, she was the only one who did not want to help or to serve under the Scarlet King. She was not swayed by his influence. So she taught her children in secret, so that one day, as she hoped, one of her children would become powerful enough to face and overthrow the king himself. to finally end his bloody tyranny. Her seal is known as Xokib, I think. It's Xokib. Xokib or Xokib, I don't know. Hope is what it's called. So you definitely see the parallels between the spears and the daughters right here. So what we can get from this is that these spears have like either the powers or like the mind of the daughters inside them somehow, or like the daughter, these like original daughters were like cast into these spears or something like that. You can definitely see the parallels.
Yeah, that will make sense.
Another very interesting thing. This is not important to the lore as a whole, but it's very popular fan theory, because if you paid attention to the 4th and 7th bride, there are lots of resemblances with other parts of the SCP lore. The 4th bride, for example, great beast, very powerful, healing injuries, almost impenetrable skin. All of these qualities also apply to our favorite murder lizard, SCP-682.
Murder lizard!
All of them. So, the fan theory is that 682 is a child of the 4th bride of the Scarlet King, therefore relating him, therefore also explaining his kind of hatred for humanity, because as the 4th bride Azib was known to be a terrible warlord. Basically, she was basically the embodiment of no mercy. She slaughtered everything regardless of where it came from, which aligns with 682's style of thinking, if you can call it that even.
That would also mean that the Scarlet King is kind of behind 5000 then.
Yes, kind of. You can interpret it. You can interpret it that way. Like I said, SCP is all about interpreting things into other things. So there could definitely be an explanation of what that entity is that the Foundation discovered in 5000. But believe it or don't believe it, it's SCP. You can make your own headcanon. Another very important thing is the 7th bride. Of course, the number 7, as you've probably already guessed, is very, very big with the Scarlet King. It's very, very big number. He really likes the number 7. He really likes it. And so the 7th bride, being very different, also having that seal of hope. First of all, explains why the children still had that 7th spear, because it is radically different, and they would they wanted to protect that thing the most. But also, it's very interesting because in the texts for the 7th bride, it says that her children were the that in the text it says that the children of the 7th bride were the embodiment of heroism and basically the saviors of humanity. When they come, these heroes, the world would be happy again. This is not very, the relations with 682 are not that obvious, but many people think that SCP-999, the weird yellow funny blob, is one of the children of the 7th bride, because they align with that, when they came, happiness will come. SCP-999 makes everyone happy that touches it or is in their vicinity. And that's basically the only connection there really is, but people really like 999, so I can get why. Also, the tonal whiplash is a little bit humorous. You have this really terrible, just terrifying demon king, and then the one that's supposed to stop him is this yellow blob that can do nothing. It's pretty humorous, but it makes kind of sense because the Foundation is saying a lot that SCP-999 is currently in a childlike state. So people interpret it that way, that once 999 grows up, it will become the warrior that will kill and overthrow the Scarlet King.
It's basically a who would win meme. One big red boy,
yes.
or a funny orange blob.
Yeah, exactly. Who would win? Demonic god creature that literally killed an entire race of gods, or one funny yellow boy?
My bet is on the yellow boy.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe it. I only think that the 682 correlation makes more sense. I don't believe in 999 shit, even though it's pretty funny. But take that how you will. So, now you know about the Scarlet King's past, who he is, why he likes bloodshed so much, and why he wants to kill everything, and also what his daughters are like. Why all this build-up? Because, going back to the GOC raid, the main thing that the GOC discovered that day were not the spears, those were like kind of like cool, like a cool side thing. The important thing was that they found 7 women, all inside like a cult circle, basically. They looked very tortured and bloody, basically. Although they were not complaining about their being, but the GOC still yoinked them and got them to the Foundation. They recovered them and brought them to the Foundation. This brings us to the meat of things. This was all the build-up part. I know I spent like a half an hour on the build-up, but cut me some slack here, okay? The Scarlet King is gigantic.
Yeah.
Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of things with SCP-231. Before I get into it also, I have this the first time, and probably not the last time, but the first time, I will have to say a big content warning for the things that come up. If you don't like descriptions of gore, torture, and other types of that thing, and you're really very sensitive to that, better to not keep listening from this point onward, or of course keep listening at your own risk, however, because things will get very graphic very soon. So, SCP-231, or also known as Special Containment Requirements. So, SCP-231. SCP-241 are these 7 women that I have allotted to previously that were recovered during the GOC raid. Their ages have been redacted, although the youngest is on the wiki the age gap is specified as an age with 2 digits and an age with 1 digit. So at least one of them is as young as 9 years old, which doesn't make me feel that good already, but that's how it is. The 7 women were all numbered SCP-231-1 to -7, and they were discovered via the GOC raid in the cult sites. They were being protected by the cult members who were all wielding those spears, by the way. They were discovered that way because the spears were like, they were doing some weird like ritual with the portals, and then the GOC stepped in. Then the guys, the cult members grabbed those spears, and then they had a big fight. They were able to kill them. Cult members grabbed the spears and then grabbed the women. Now we get into their special containment procedures, which are... Oh god, okay. So, the original containment procedures for SCP-231-1 to -7 were that they were to be held in different cells. Each bride was to be held in a different cell. This worked out pretty well. However, 231-1 to -6 are all dead. They all breached containment, and now only 231-7 remains. There is a log list of what happened during all the containment breaches. But basically, every single one of these SCPs, of SCP-231-1 to -7, all these women are pregnant with something. And whenever that thing that they have inside them, they give birth to it, something terrible happens. It happened with SCP-231-1 to -6. They all birthed a redacted creature, because I don't want to know what that is. And they all caused a gigantic loss of life, either on site or somewhere else. Some people also theorize that many big natural disasters were because one of the brides gave birth at that moment, but that's not confirmed at all. So, now only SCP-231-7 remains, with the Foundation being very scared that, of course, once the bride gives birth, something very terrible will happen, because the acts of destruction that were caused by the birthing kept escalating. And with the information we have from the Dust and Blood story, and with the raid, something with the number, if the 7th bride gives birth, this probably means at least XK class end of the world scenario. At least that's what the Foundation believes in. So they were hard at work at finding a containment procedure that works. After months of research, a man stepped forth. His name is Dr. Robert Montauk, a person who we will be talking about a lot later, but he's basically the project lead for SCP-231. And he pitched the idea for a new procedure that would hinder the girl from giving birth to whatever thing was inside her. That procedure was dubbed Procedure 110 Montauk, a phrase that many people who have just heard about the Scarlet King might have already heard about, and it is pretty horrible. I will read the 05 message regarding the usage of Procedure 110 Montauk. One final note. The Foundation does many distasteful things in the completion of our mission, but our mission is important enough that the price is one we must pay. Containment of SCP-231 is one of our most dangerous duties. Not because of any direct dangers to ourselves, like with SCP-682, but because of the danger that our resolve will fail, that we will allow ourselves to either let our guard down due to sympathy for the suffering of an innocent, or that we will allow ourselves to become monsters through the performance of monstrous acts. Just do your jobs and save the philosophizing for the shrink. Sincerely, 05-Redacted.
There is some small text at the end of it.
There is a very small text at the end of it, yeah. It reads, okay, I have to zoom in real quick.
Don't believe it when they say they are trying to save her. Why would they bother? They've got exactly what they want, exactly where they want it.
Pretty ominous.
Yeah.
Now, what is Procedure 110 Montauk? Every part of 110 Montauk has been redacted and expunged from Foundation records. Nowhere in the Foundation's database is 110 Montauk being described, because people or staff who experienced Procedure 110 Montauk either left the company, the SCP Foundation, or committed suicide. So, we will get back to that question later. But for now, this is what the Foundation does with the 7th bride. They keep her contained and expose her to a probably insanely inhumane and disgusting procedure to keep her from birthing whatever abomination is inside her. This is the original depiction of the Scarlet King. The story back in the day, the story ended at 231, and that was basically all you knew about the Scarlet King. However, as the SCP Foundation progressed and writers wrote more things, the Scarlet King became a lot more problematic and vague. And this, but people most of the time were still adhering to that interpretation. Until Series 3, and SCP-231-7 was released. It has the same number as 231-7, however, without the dash. It is an entirely new SCP, titled The Door to Another World. So, this is gonna get very confusing in a second. So, I hope you understood what came, the hour that came before it, because right now you will see lots of clashing information, lots of contradicting things, but I hope I'll make it worthwhile and understandable. So, SCP-231-7. Ominous because, same number as the 7th bride. What is it about? SCP-231-7 is a wooden door found in a random building somewhere in the world. It is not really specified where it was found. This door, when opened, leads to another dimension that is very different to our dimension. That is the entire thing that this SCP does. Like, that the door does. It's the most basic shit ever. It's just a door that you walk through and you appear in another dimension. It's Series 1 SCPs had more depth than that.
Yeah.
The more important thing is the dimension you end up in. So, The dimension you go to, known as SCP-2317-Prime, is a gigantic salt pan, which is basically like a desert, but made entirely out of salt, spanning several kilometers in either side, and there's nothing there. It's basically, if you ever played Dark Souls 3, that like the area with Slave Knight Gale, this gigantic wasteland of nothing, that is basically what this looks like. In roughly 10 meters away from the door are 7 marble pillars, situated in a circle pattern. The pillars are numbered SCP-2317-A to G, and they are 10 meters in diameter and 7 meters tall. They were, like I said, made out of marble with weird religious engravings all over them. That was originally the only thing that the Foundation discovered. However, seismic analysis of the terrain revealed that each pillar extends roughly 200 meters below the ground until they stop connecting, and they connect to a sort of like sphere-like object. Furthermore, more seismic analysis and geographical discoveries were made, and the thing that the pillars connected to was revealed. It is in fact a sphere, a gigantic sphere. It is roughly 100 kilometers in diameter. That's right below their feet. It is made out of the same marble that the pillars were made of, and it was titled SCP-2317-H. So, Jesus Christ, 100 kilometers in length? What the fuck?
That's a Death Star.
It's not. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. Don't worry. Inside this sphere is a creature known as quote unquote the Entity, titled SCP-217-K. After analysis, they basically then sent like small drones down to the sphere, and then they studied with like cameras that they like drill into the sphere. They could see the thing. I think that's how it goes. The Entity is a gigantic humanoid creature with an estimated height of 200 kilometers.
Oh.
Big boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
It has horns sprouting from its head in the shape of like big trees, no lower jaw, one big eye like a cyclops, and the entire body is covered in scales like a dragon almost, although it is a humanoid creature. Also, there are 7 hooks like rammed into the Entity's back, where the Entity is bleeding constantly from the hooks, with 7 chains attaching to those hooks, connecting the hook to the marble pillars that are on the surface. If you want to know what the 241-K looks like, I have got the picture in Discord now. This is a artist rendition of what it could technically look like. It's a gigantic dragon demon thing. It looks pretty cool, but don't like it. Don't like the scaliness.
I just don't.
Yep.
Sideways eye really freaks me out.
Yeah.
This is another artist's rendition of how gigantic that thing is. Like, look at it.
That's
Oh.
a big
Wow.
chunk of.
Yeah, it's a big
It
boy.
is. It's really fucking huge. So now these chains all connect to the hooks in the back to the pillars on the top. However, 6 out of 7 chains have been either broken or damaged to the point where they could easily be ripped off, with only 1 chain remaining. This already should sound like 4 million bells in your minds,
Yep.
because, yeah, we have the 7th bride connecting to the 7th chain, connecting to the 7th spear.
Yep.
Lots of what the fuck? Like, things connecting. This is getting really, really deep, and every single piece is connecting.
I need
Yeah.
I need a board, a bunch of corkscrews, and a lot of strings right now.
That's about right. It sounds about right. Yep. So, the Foundation, of course, found this gigantic demon thing, very scared, because one chain remaining. So, the Foundation devised, brought our old friend, Mr. Montauk, to the project to devise another procedure. Not the same, but another procedure. The procedure is known as Procedure 220 Calabasas, I think how you pronounce it. Just 220. Like 220 is like again 220 the symbology, 220 the double of 110.
Yeah.
Symbology everywhere. The ritual is, I'm not explaining the ritual in detail because it is very complicated, very weird. It's like some weird satanic ritual things. It involves, as far as I can remember, it involves like a D-class taking an obsidian dagger, cutting a chicken's head off, and pouring its blood around the circle. Then, like, he has to ram the dagger inside himself, then combine his blood with their. It's weird. Weird satanic ritual thing.
Standard culture, standard ritual thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. The most important thing is that it is a procedure with 7 steps requiring 7 objects.
Of course.
Because of course it is.
For fuck's sake.
If the ritual fails, it will result in an XK class end of the world scenario, as most of the things with the Scarlet King result in. However, the Foundation doesn't know yet because, like, they either don't want that happen, and testing it would be pretty difficult. Testing an end of the world scenario is not really something that the Foundation can do. They did it before, but not now.
What do you mean they did it before?
Look, they have a fucking lab with a clone of every single human under Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
Okay, they can reset humanity. They can.
They have a
They can.
reset button.
Okay,
Exactly.
I know about the reset, but how, okay, if you destroyed the Earth, how do you reset it?
Do a 5,000.
Magic?
Just reset.
Yeah.
Reset the universe.
For fuck's sake.
Just throw
Sure,
a box
yes.
into a sphere.
Okay,
and
let's
that works out.
ignore what I said. Let's go.
Good. This is normally where everything would end. However, 231.7 is a very special SCP because the entire SCP is split up into 6 iterations. Iteration 1 through 6. Not 7, which is kind of weird. I was expecting 7, but no, 6. Iteration 1 through 5, we've just discovered. However, iteration 6 is where things get interesting. Because the article starts with an overseer logging into the Foundation database, 0513, who 0513 is back on his bullshit again. We will do a whole different episode on 0513 because he is a very important member, maybe the most important member of the 05 Council, but that's later. He logs in to the SCP database and accesses SCP-231-7. Because for the new version of that file, you need level 5 clearance, which only the overseers have. He accesses the document and checks these special containment procedures. They have been changed to one word: irrelevant.
Oh no.
Sounds ominous.
Don't like that. Yep. So, the entity below has been discovered. What the entity is. Its name has been redacted, although the number of letters fit the Scarlet King in terms of like numbers of letters. It perfectly fits.
Of course.
He also gets the nickname the Devourer of Worlds, which is kind of you don't need another nickname when your name is the Scarlet King, but I digress.
Obviously you do.
The more titles, the better.
He's intimidating enough as is, okay?
No, more titles.
Let's make it more
More.
intimidating.
Regardless. The description also says that a containment breach is inevitable and cannot be stopped. The Foundation says that this containment breach will definitely occur sometime within the next century, but researchers estimate the time to be more around 30 years from now. So, not good. Very, very bad. Research is ongoing, but the Foundation is not very optimistic if they can ever stop this monster, the Scarlet King, from awakening. This is as scary as that is. The really interesting thing comes now, because it is revealed that 220 Calabasas, the procedure, is totally made up. It doesn't do anything. The only reason why they keep doing it is to heighten morale in staff, so that they don't like lose their grip on reality and say we're all gonna die anyway. That's the only reason why they keep doing it.
So you want to tell me the SCP Foundation does
Yep.
a weird blood ritual on every I don't know how much,
Yep.
so that they could keep the morale up. It does nothing else.
Yes. The procedure has to be repeated every 7 days, and they do it so that people don't basically give up, because they're all gonna die anyway. All that work. I mean, they have D-class personnel. D-class personnel do it, so they don't care. But still, they do all this crazy shit for nothing. For nothing. No reason.
I guess morale is a pretty good reason. I'm not sure, man.
Yeah. So, while this is going on, the Foundation is preparing a procedure to save humanity for when the day comes that the Scarlet King awakes. The decision was pitched to the OFF Council and approved unanimously. So yeah, now we have... Now, this is all, so far, a very coherent story. Like, you have Scarlet King and how he started. Then you had his like fall not his fall, but the birthing of his daughters. Millennia passed by. He is now in this weird dimension, chained to like 7 pillars. This gigantic creature, and you have the 7 spears, 7 daughters, all connecting with the chains. So you can think that when the daughter gives birth, the chain will break, etc., etc. This is all not confusing so far. Well, that kept on for a long time, until a certain writer known as Tufto on the wiki submitted his 001 proposal. It was called The Scarlet King. And when that thing dropped, everything changed. For the king and for the lore of the king himself. So, I will talk about the 001 proposal now, similar to how I did the church one. But this will not be a story driven. This is more kind of like a final piece in the puzzle that destroys the puzzle entirely, but let me get to it. So, the 001 proposal. The first thing that you see when you open the proposal of the Scarlet King, the gigantic demon guy, he is classified as safe. What the fuck? How is this guy safe?
It was Keter, but that has
It
been
was
crossed
originally
out.
Keter, but it was crossed out and they're safe now.
Huh?
Yeah, so the Foundation is obviously not really concerned with him being around, I guess. But let's keep going. The special containment procedures say that containing the Scarlet King, or SCP-001 as it's referred to, is unnecessary and is not needed. Hiring the guys who make all the documents are their mission is to lie to high-ranking staff that SCP-2317 is the Scarlet King. So this already throws everything we've built up over the past hour out the fucking window. Because apparently 2317 is not the Scarlet King.
Fucking
It's confusing, I know, but it's gonna get worse.
holy shit.
So, this sentence is of course open to interpretation, but I don't believe it. They're lying to high-ranking personnel. 2317 is not the Scarlet King. The rest of the proposal covers our good friend Dr. Robert Montauk and how he is his research on the Scarlet King. Quick little background on Dr. Montauk. He has been the project lead on every single item related to the Scarlet King. So this proposal, 241, 2317, all the tales, all is in his possession because he has been trying to understand the Scarlet King for basically his entire life, for decades. He's been trying to understand who the king is and what he is. This all culminated in him finally hunting down and getting the leader of the Children of the Scarlet King cult that were where the 7 brides were found. He found him and got him into Foundation custody and interrogated him for weeks to get information out of him. The leader of the children is very cryptic, but in basic terms, he explained to Montauk his belief, or basically the cult's belief of the Scarlet King. And he said that the Scarlet King works on 3 specific laws: the law of blood, the law of howling, and the law of concrete. The first one is the law of blood. The law of blood basically represents the old rule under the Scarlet King. So everything that the king does revolves around cruelty, brutality, bloodshed, destruction, everything. Like we heard in Dust and Blood before. Like, because he killed the entire race, he brutally broke the goddess of wisdom below him. He basically, he revolves around destruction, basically. This is also known as the old ways. So the age of just accepting. So slaves, torture, chaos, blood sport, everything like that is not questioned. It's just accepted. The law of concrete is the exact opposite. It is the mentality that the Foundation shares. Everything must be understood, studied, researched, and modern civilization must function under common sense. It's the exact inverse of the law of blood. Basically, all things must be civil and must revolve around common sense. The law of howling is the most complex out of the 3. It is basically the clashing between these 2 ideologies. It says that whenever 2 individuals, one believing in blood and one in concrete, meet each other, there is bound to be disagreement, fighting, and ultimately bloodshed among the both of them. That is the law of howling. It is very confusing, I know, like, what the fuck is this ideological bullshit? But in basic terms, the leader of the cult thinks, or the children of the Scarlet King cult think of the Scarlet King as an idea, as a concept, not as an entity or a creature, but as a form of thinking, a form of combining the laws of blood, of combining the old and the new and clashing in between. Very theoretical, very weird, I know, but that's what the leader of the children said. Dr. Montauk, after years of studying the Scarlet King and Dr. Montauk interrogating the leader, he finally found an answer. And the thing is, he agrees with him.
Oh.
And so
Fuck him.
the proposal ends with a note from Dr. Montauk himself, which I will read right now. It's a little bit longer, so brace yourself. Finally, it was finished. One single new tree had been planted in the center of the central courtyard, not through any sense of whimsy or delight, but to give those within a little sense of nature, of reality, in the center of the gray, to keep them sane, nothing more, a precisely mandated allowance for the improvement of human mental health, until they can find out a way to phase that out entirely. I watched, and I thought about all that we had done. I thought about the world they wanted. I thought about their spinelessness. I knew what good was, and what evil was, and I saw none of it in either of them. I thought about hollow men, made of straw, plastered together with thick paste, and sold in 1,000 identical ways, in 1,000 identical shops. I thought about what we had lost, and I howled. At night, the day before the site's grand opening, I dug up the seeds of the tree and replaced them with a seed of my own devising, and over Site 231 will stand a thing of blood and bone and sinew, a tree that drips and leers and feeds. It will drip strange fire, and that fire will burn both and warm in equal measure. And they will look up at it and wish they had listened while they had the chance. I know this path is wrong, but at least it is a path. With thoughts and prayers, Dr. Robert Montauk, child of the Scarlet King.
With thoughts and prayers. Freaking
With thoughts and
Facebook mom.
prayers.
Freaking Facebook
Yep.
mom Montauk.
The guy straight up converted to a cult member.
Of course he did. Ah, damn
Yep.
it.
And so, Dr. Montauk is no longer a doctor, but he is in fact out. He is with the children of the Scarlet King. And has now embraced him how he is.
Wow.
This
That was-
all, of course, this whole proposal takes a sledgehammer and shatters the entire concept we've been building up to this entire time. Because we had the thing, okay, Scarlet King, big old demon creature, had 7 brides. Fine. And they all birthed something, like his children or whatever. In SCP-241. SCP-241-7, Scarlet King is now actually in another dimension and we can access him. He's a big, giant scale demon dragon creature below a wasteland. Okay. Proposal comes around, no one knows anymore who he is or what he even is supposed to be. But, in my opinion, there is one tale that identifies, or at least sheds some light on the true nature of the Scarlet King. And that tale is called Fear Alone. One of my favorite tales of all time, in the Scarlet King like part of the universe. I love Fear Alone.
Yeah.
And it answers some questions that you've probably all been asking yourself. So, Fear Alone is about a new researcher that gets assigned to SCP-241. And one day, a high-ranking individual comes into the containment site and orders that Procedure 110 Montauk should be done. And this new guy is fucking horrified. Because he heard the stories about the people committing suicide, about researchers being no longer able to live with after seeing what Procedure 110 Montauk is and leaving the company. And he is fucking terrified. There's a long build-up before the procedure begins. The lights go out, and a light is cast on SCP-241-7, a small 9-year-old girl that is laying on a tourniquet. That is laying on the gurney inside the containment chamber. The procedure begins. A D-class personnel walks in the chamber, together with a book. He sits next to SCP-241-7 and reads the 9-year-old girl a story. SCP-241-7 falls asleep, the D-class leaves the room, and the procedure is done. So, this is the reveal. This is what 110 Montauk is. It's reading a bedtime story to a child.
My favorite story of the whole SCP.
Yep, that is the big reveal. That 110 Montauk is in fact not a terrible, inhumane, brutal procedure. It is just that. A random guy reading a bedtime story to a young child. And nothing else. This gives us so much room to work with. Because right after the procedure, the new guy who was assigned to SCP-241, of course, is confused as fuck. Because he heard the stories, he heard the horrible tales. This is when the senior researcher comes in and talks to him about what he just saw. And he later identifies himself as Robert Montauk. He's the guy. He opens basically the new researcher's eyes. Because he says that the Scarlet King, in order for the Scarlet King to exist, he, like we said previously, his law of blood has to be enacted. The Scarlet King draws power from all types of destructive events. These events can also be of theoretical nature, not just physical. So, the Foundation, being the gigabrains that they are, lies about 110 Montauk being absolutely horrible, so that people imagine horrible things when they read about 110 Montauk, i.e. satiating the king without knowing. This is also why the 001 proposal has safe. Because seeing like that Keter classification scratch on safe written over it, people already think that, oh no, this has to be something completely horrible and brutal, but it's not. And so people think these horrible things, satiating the king, which contains him at the same time. So, and this explains everything. This explains why 110 Montauk works. The SCP 2317 procedure, the weird blood ritual, that also explains it. Because, it does nothing, but it satiates the king. And also why the 00 puzzle is written that way. It explains everything.
That's some gigabrain bullshit, man.
Like I said, the Foundation might be pretty stupid and just flings it has like a dartboard with ways to contain written on it and just heats darts at it. But they are insanely intelligent.
It's a carefully created dartboard.
Exactly. Yes. So, in order to end this gigantic beast of an episode, who is the Scarlet King? As a final question, I know this is kind of a trick question because it cannot be answered 100% of the time, but this is where the beauty of the Scarlet King as literature comes in. If you read all the tales, if you read all the information, you yourself create an image of what the Scarlet King is. And that is his whole entire concept. Thinking about him satiates him, so he is contained. So just by you being curious and checking the SCP Wiki, you in turn contain or help to contain the Scarlet King. It all comes around in circles, and it's amazing. It's great. So I love it so much. But of course, everyone themselves has a headcanon of what the Scarlet King is. For example, I personally do not believe in that theoretical bullshit that the cult leader says. I think that is just him being a cult. He is cryptic and has his weird he thinks of random bullshit all the time. I personally believe that SCP-2317 is I believe that is not the Scarlet King. That I totally believe, because this has to be some other entity, because the Scarlet King in the literature was never referred to as the Devourer of Worlds. So it has to be some other entity that the Foundation believes to be the Scarlet King. I don't buy it. I personally think that the Scarlet King is what he is in the old lore, in the Dust and Blood lore. That he is a godlike being existing in his own dimension, or presumably in multiple dimensions at once, and that he is trying, together with his armies, to take over or destroy, as the Law of Blood says, to destroy other universes, and that he has picked our universe next. And so the Foundation, in a stroke of absolute genius, found a way to make him basically contain himself, so that they don't have to do anything. I do believe that Montauk has left, and I definitely do believe that Montauk is definitely out. He is out, definitely. But that is what my personal interpretation of the Scarlet King is. But like I said, Scarlet King is all about interpretation. All about interpretation. You can believe none of this. You can believe all of this, you can believe none of this. It doesn't matter. The whole point of him is that you have to create your own idea of the Scarlet King. So I hope that this was like kind of an introduction, or an introduction into you figuring out your own part for the Scarlet King, and how he looks, how he is, how he acts, and what he does. And that's it. That's the Scarlet King. This has been... Yep.
My head hurts.
It makes total sense. It makes total sense. The Scarlet King is a lot. I love him. I love the story. I love the weird interconnectedness of things. I love that it is not... because I've been waiting a long time for this episode, because this is SCP, And most of our episodes have been like about the ridiculous and weird part of SCP. This is about the serious, scary, brutal, and terrifying part of SCP, which I personally adore a lot. And I can't wait for the new series and if they will ever make another Scarlet King SCP.
Oh, they're bound to make one.
They're back, yeah. Once Series 7 comes, if 7777 is not the Scarlet King, I'm out. out.
I'll be disappointed. By the way,
I'll be very disappointed. Yeah.
those 4 sevens mark our 28th mention of number 7 in this episode.
Hey,
Oh,
I've been
wow.
keeping a counter.
God damn.
hey, awesome. Yep. Also, to you and to our viewers, if you might have noticed, this is our 7th episode.
Yeah.
Of course.
Why? What?
Of course.
Yes.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, it was the 4th one was the library. The 5th one was Clef. The 6th was the bonus episode, and now it's the 7th
Yeah,
episode, Scarlet King.
Damn.
Perfect. Awesome.
It was all planned.
You
It was
mad.
not planned. It was not planned. I'm gonna be serious.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
not
yeah,
planned.
I just
wasn't-
noticed your Discord description, the 7 seals thing. Damn it. Oh
Yeah.
god.
7 seals, 7 rings, 7 brides for the Scarlet King. That is
7
his,
episodes for the
his
podcast.
7 episodes for the
Podcast,
podcast. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. There is, of course, a lot more about the Scarlet King that I have not mentioned. Like, for example, there is a entire like poem hidden inside SCP-231, which can only be revealed by a word processor, which shines a light on a lot more of the religious part of the Scarlet King. The Scarlet King gets mentioned in countless other big like lore SCPs. He gets mentioned in some 001 proposals. He gets mentioned in like some of the meta SCPs. But right now, for the current state of SCP, he has been laying dormant for a while. But I'm sure that either Tufto, the writer of the 001 proposal, the Scarlet King, has something planned when we will hear about the king again. Because Jesus Christ, the writers are their own madmen. And I am terrified to see what he is cooking up for the return of the king. But yeah, that's basically all there is to the Scarlet King. Closing thoughts, closing statements.
I have 2 closing thoughts. One, this
Okay.
wasn't an introduction. It was a mindfuck. Second, mark my words. SCP-7777 is gonna be the Scarlet King. If not, I will legit donate $100 to whatever charity. Fucking mark that down.
That's on video.
Yeah.
It will be there.
You are
It's
on
video.
record. You are on record
I'll
saying
save my
that.
summer work money. I'll save my like $300 I will get, and I'll fucking mark my words. I will wait. Like the Scarlet King, I will lay dormant until SCP-777, and if it isn't about or related to Scarlet King, I will probably A, donate to whatever charity you guys decide, or the viewers, or B, if I don't know anything, I will probably donate to one of my hospitals near me.
Donate to 7
Okay.
charities.
Fucking save that clip. Save this
Yep.
whole thing.
Yep. You know what? I'll join you. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I'll mention
it as
Tufto,
well.
get on it. Tufto, get on it. If I will be mad if you miss that chance. I will be mad.
I'll think I'll legitimately be pissed off if
Oh
it
yeah.
isn't
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
come on.
connected
It's
to
so
the
obvious.
Scarlet.
It's
Yeah.
so obvious. It's the Scarlet King.
Yeah.
Or
gonna
maybe
be the
7132.
Reverse meta. It isn't about the Scarlet King on the surface, and then Big Brain move it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
That's probably it.
It'll
The
be a
Scarlet
fake
King
out.
the Scarlet King is known for insanely long articles. So if that article isn't like half a book, I'm disappointed.
Damn it.
Just to get my research in the perspective here, I read through the entirety. For example, the KTE 2013 document, the one that I discovered on the very first part. Everything that I said is only 1/3 of the document.
Oh,
There are
damn.
still 2/3 of additional information, history, combat logs, audio logs, everything in there. I didn't want to bloat the episode so much because it's already like 1.5 hours long because it's the Scarlet King. So our viewers are very happy to read it on their own because it's a very good story. Also, I cut down Dust and Blood very heavily. There's a little bit more information on the past of the Scarlet King. And I also cut down on SCP-241-7 because there's a whole log about how each of the girls died and what it gave birth to and all that crazy shit. Lots of reading material for our viewers to do homework on. So I've left out quite a lot.
Imagine if SCP-7777, that was 4 sevens, right? It's nothing but a link to a book about the Scarlet King.
I think at the same time I'd be very glad and very
I'd
close
be
to
mad.
shooting myself.
Yes, both. Mad and glad.
Yep. So that's basically it. That was the Scarlet King. Don't expect another episode of that caliber to come out anytime soon. But yeah, that is about it. Thank you all so much for listening, and see you next time. Bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.